Millionaire fell in love at first sight with the bridesmaid who was late, not knowing she was hiding a past that could change his life forever. Comment below where you're enjoying this story from. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the sprawling estate where the meticulously arranged white roses lined the cobblestone pathway leading to the ceremonial arch. Laughter and the soft hum of string instruments filled the air as elegantly dressed guests found their seats. Everything about the scene exuded perfection, except for the palpable tension in the groom's voice. "Ethan, do you think she'll make it?" the groom whispered, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. Ethan Grayson, a man of measured composure, leaned against a stone pillar, observing the organized chaos with a faint smile. He was here as a favor to his best friend Adam, but weddings weren't his scene. At 32, Ethan had everything a man could want: wealth, prestige, and influence. But the emotional resonance of such events felt distant to him. His life, though outwardly perfect, had always been an exercise in meticulous planning. Yet today, something felt different, and it wasn't just the wedding jitters floating through the air. Before Ethan could reply, the distant sound of hurried footsteps on the gravel pulled everyone's attention. Turning his head, he saw her, a woman rushing toward the gathering, her soft lilac dress swaying in rhythm with her movement. Her name, as the murmurs quickly identified, was Sophia Reed. She wasn't a bridesmaid by original design, but a last-minute substitute. She apologized profusely, the soft British lilt of her voice carrying across the courtyard. Her cheeks were flushed, her curls slightly disheveled, but her presence held a magnetic charm that quieted the crowd. Ethan froze, his sharp blue eyes narrowing as if his mind was trying to piece together why the sight of her left him momentarily breathless. She wasn't conventionally glamorous like the women he typically encountered in his world of high society, but there was something strikingly real about her. A faint scar grazed the edge of her temple, just visible under the light, hinting at untold stories. Her eyes, a deep hazel, carried a mix of embarrassment and determination, as though she refused to let her tardiness ruin the moment for the bride. As Sophia took her place, Ethan couldn't look away. For the first time in years, the meticulously constructed walls around him began to falter. His world of cold numbers, calculated risks, and endless boardrooms suddenly felt irrelevant. "Who is she?" Ethan found himself whispering aloud, earning a raised eyebrow from Adam. "Late," Adam quipped. "That's who she is." But to Ethan, Sophia was far more than just a late arrival. She was a mystery wrapped in lilac, and his heart, so long untouched by emotion, stirred in a way he couldn't explain. The ceremony proceeded flawlessly, but Ethan's thoughts were elsewhere, replaying the fleeting expressions and small gestures of the woman who had unknowingly captured his attention. As the first notes of the recessional music began, Ethan made a silent vow. He had to know more about Sophia Reed. The reception was held in the grand ballroom of the estate, its vaulted ceilings adorned with chandeliers that sparkled like constellations. The air buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the faint clinking of champagne glasses. Ethan moved through the room with practiced ease, exchanging pleasantries and shaking hands, but his mind was elsewhere. He scanned the crowd, searching for the enigmatic bridesmaid. Sophia, meanwhile, stood at the edge of the room near the dessert table. She had swapped her heels for a pair of flats she'd brought in her bag, clearly valuing comfort over appearances. She was nibbling on a macaron, her gaze distant, as though she didn't quite belong in the opulence around her. Ethan finally spotted her, and without giving himself time to overthink, he approached. "You were quite the entrance," he said, his voice warm but measured. "Punctuality is overrated anyway." Sophia glanced up, startled, then smiled faintly. "Well, thank you for your generosity. I'm not sure the wedding planner would agree." "I wouldn't worry about him," Ethan replied, his tone dismissive. "He seems far more concerned with how straight the napkins are folded than with people." She laughed softly, the sound light and genuine. "I suppose weddings bring out the perfectionists in everyone." There was a brief silence. Ethan, who was never at a loss for words in business meetings or public appearances, found himself oddly tongue-tied. Sophia, for her part, seemed perfectly at ease with the quiet. "What brought you here?" he finally asked. "To the wedding, I mean. You don't seem like someone who spends her weekends at events like this." Sophia hesitated, her fingers grazing the edge of her glass. "My cousin was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but she had an emergency. I stepped in last minute." "And you? What do you usually do when you're not saving weddings?" The question lingered in the air. Sophia's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. "I'm a music teacher," she said simply. "Or, at least I used to be. These days, I mostly take on odd jobs." Ethan's interest deepened. "Music teacher? That's not something you hear every day. Why the change?" Sophia smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Life has a way of redirecting us, doesn't it? Before Ethan could press further, the bride appeared, pulling Sophia into a cheerful embrace and whisking her away to meet other guests. Ethan stood there, his curiosity growing with every unanswered question. Later that evening, when the festivities had quieted, Sophia slipped out to the garden, seeking a moment of solitude. She sat on a stone bench, the night air cool against her skin, and let out a long sigh. Her life hadn't always been this way. Once, she had been on the verge of a promising career as a classical pianist. Her performances had drawn standing ovations, and her future seemed bright. But everything changed when her mother fell gravely ill. Sophia had left it all behind, her dreams, her career, and her ambitions, to become a full-time caregiver. The sacrifices had been worth it, but they came at a cost. Money was tight, her career had stalled, and now, with her mother's health improving, she found herself adrift, unsure of how to rebuild the life she had put on hold. As these thoughts swirled, she was startled by a voice. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Sophia turned to see Ethan standing a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. She hadn't heard him approach, but there he was, looking as though he belonged as much to the quiet garden as to the grand ballroom. "It is," she replied, her voice soft. "Sometimes I think the stars are more honest company than people." Ethan chuckled, taking a seat on the bench beside her. "They don't have much to say, but I suppose that's the appeal." There was another pause, but this time it was comfortable. "You seem out of place here," Ethan said after a moment. "Not in a bad way, just different." Sophia tilted her head, studying him. "And you don't? A millionaire in a room full of people trying to impress you?" Ethan smiled, appreciating her candor. "Touché." For the next hour, they talked about music, ambition, family, and the unexpected paths life had taken them on. Ethan shared snippets of his own story, revealing the disciplined upbringing that had driven him to success but left little room for personal fulfillment. In turn, Sophia spoke of her love for music, her mother's illness, and the uncertainty of her future. By the time they returned to the party, something unspoken had passed between them, a connection neither could quite name but both felt deeply. Not everyone shared Ethan's growing admiration for Sophia. Christopher Vale, the wedding planner, had been observing their interactions with thinly veiled disdain. To Christopher, people like Sophia didn't belong in circles like this. She was an outsider, and her casual demeanor grated against his obsession with appearances. "She's charming, isn't she?" Christopher remarked to a group of guests, his tone dripping with insincerity. "Though I do wonder what someone like her does for a living. She doesn't quite fit the usual mold." The comment was met with polite chuckles, but one of the older women frowned. "Christopher, dear, that's quite enough. People are more than their backgrounds." Christopher shrugged, though his expression remained smug. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone like Sophia Reed. As the evening wore on, Ethan found himself caught in a conversation with his parents, who had also noticed his interest in Sophia. "She seems nice," his mother said diplomatically, "but perhaps not quite what we envisioned for you." "And what did you envision?" Ethan asked, his tone sharper than he intended. His father cleared his throat. "Ethan, we're not saying you can't make your own choices. We just want you to be careful. Not everyone sees the world the way you do." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He knew they meant well, but their words only reinforced his resolve. Whatever he felt for Sophia, it wasn't something he could ignore or dismiss because of societal expectations. The days following the wedding were a whirlwind of thoughts for Ethan. Sophia's image lingered in his mind, her radiant smile, her graceful yet unpretentious demeanor, and her hauntingly beautiful story. He was a man used to having answers, yet Sophia left him with questions he couldn't shake. Ethan's mind wasn't the only thing stirred. The next morning, his inbox buzzed with reminders of meetings, investment pitches, and contracts to sign. But none of it held the allure it once did. Even as he sat in his towering office overlooking the city skyline, his thoughts wandered back to the quiet gardens of the estate and the woman who had captured his attention. Ethan's success hadn't come without sacrifices. Born to a middle-class family, he'd clawed his way to the top with relentless drive and an almost pathological need for perfection. But with that success came isolation. Relationships had become transactional, and genuine connections were rare. The wedding had reminded him of what he had lost, or perhaps never truly found. As he navigated the polished, sterile world of high-stakes business, he began to wonder if there was more to life than deals and accolades. It was during a rare moment of solitude in his office that he made a decision. He needed to see Sophia again. Ethan's search began with Adam, who was still basking in post-wedding bliss. Over a casual lunch, Ethan brought up Sophia. "You've been acting strange," Adam said, narrowing his eyes. "Are you asking about Sophia Reed?" Ethan shrugged, feigning indifference. "She just seemed interesting." Adam chuckled. "Interesting, huh? Well, good luck with that. She's not exactly easy to find. Lives a quiet life, from what I hear. Doesn't even use social media much." After some prodding, Ethan learned that Sophia worked part-time at a community center, teaching piano to underprivileged children. It was a far cry from the world of luxury and privilege Ethan inhabited, but that only deepened his intrigue. The next afternoon, Ethan found himself outside a modest building in the heart of the city. The sign above the entrance read, "Harmony Haven, enriching lives through music." Inside, the faint sound of piano keys drifted through the air, accompanied by the laughter of children. Ethan stepped in, his polished shoes clicking against the worn floorboards. The sight that greeted him was both humbling and heartwarming. Sophia sat at a piano, her fingers gliding effortlessly over the keys as a group of wide-eyed children watched in awe. She wasn't just playing music. She was breathing life into the room. When she finally noticed him standing at the door, her expression shifted from surprise to guarded curiosity. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" He smiled, feeling uncharacteristically nervous. "I wanted to see where the magic happens." Sophia arched an eyebrow, but didn't push him away. Instead, she gestured toward a nearby chair. "You can sit, but only if you behave. My students are easily distracted." For the next hour, Ethan watched as Sophia worked with the children. Her patience, her passion, and the way she encouraged even the shyest students left him in awe. Here, away from the judgmental glances of high society, she seemed truly at peace. After the lesson, Sophia and Ethan found a quiet corner to talk. "I didn't peg you as someone who'd show up at a community center," she said, a teasing smile playing on her lips. "There's a lot you don't know about me," Ethan replied, his tone light but sincere, "and I'm hoping to change that." Sophia looked at him for a long moment as though weighing his words. "Why? What's a man like you doing chasing someone like me?" The question caught him off guard, but he answered honestly. "Because I can't stop thinking about you, and because I think you're worth chasing." Sophia's expression softened, but her hesitation was evident. "Ethan, You live in a world I don't understand, a world I don't think I want to understand. Then let me meet you in yours, he said. No expectations, no strings. Just coffee? Sophia smiled despite herself. Coffee, huh? You're persistent. I'm also very good at convincing people, he added with a grin. Their first date was nothing like the lavish affairs Ethan was used to. They met at a small cafe near the community center, its rustic charm a perfect backdrop for their conversation. Over steaming cups of coffee, they talked for hours, peeling back layers of each other's lives. Sophia opened up about her mother's illness and the sacrifices she had made. Ethan listened intently, his admiration for her growing with every word. In turn, he shared stories of his climb to success, the struggles he faced, and the emptiness that often accompanied his achievements. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly seen. Not as a millionaire or a businessman, but as a person. And for Sophia, Ethan's genuine interest and kindness began to chip away at the walls she had built around her heart. Not everyone was thrilled about Ethan and Sophia's budding relationship. Christopher Vale, the wedding planner, had caught wind of their growing connection and saw an opportunity to meddle. One evening, during a charity event, Christopher approached Ethan. I hear you've been spending time with Miss Reed, he said, his tone dripping with condescension. She's charming, of course, but I'd be careful if I were you. People like her are often looking for a way out of their struggles. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. People like her? And what exactly do you mean by that? Christopher feigned innocence. I only mean that she's not from our world. It's admirable, really. Your generosity. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Sophia is more than capable of standing on her own, and if you think I'm going to stand here and listen to you belittle her, you're mistaken. With that, Ethan walked away, leaving Christopher to stew in his own pettiness. Despite Ethan's unwavering support, Sophia struggled with her own insecurities. As their relationship deepened, she couldn't shake the feeling that their worlds were too different. The whispers of judgment from people like Christopher only amplified her doubts. One evening, as they walked through a park, she finally voiced her concerns. Ethan, what happens when the novelty of this, of us, wears off? What happens when you realize I'm not like the women you're used to? If you are enjoying the story till now, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It costs you nothing, but for us, especially in these early days, it means the world. Let's continue. Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her. Sophia, I'm not looking for a novelty. I'm looking for something real, and I don't care what anyone else thinks. What matters is what we think, what we feel. His words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. Slowly, Sophia nodded, the weight on her shoulders lifting just a little. The weeks that followed were both exhilarating and challenging for Ethan and Sophia. Their connection deepened with every shared moment, but the gap between their worlds became increasingly apparent. Ethan's life was a constant juggling act of high-powered meetings and social obligations, while Sophia's was filled with quiet resilience, teaching music, and caring for her mother. One evening, Ethan invited Sophia to a charity gala he was hosting. It was a glittering event held at one of the city's most prestigious venues. Sophia hesitated but eventually agreed, wanting to support Ethan despite her discomfort with such environments. The gala was a dazzling display of wealth and influence. Women in designer gowns mingled with men in tailored suits, and every conversation seemed laced with subtle power plays. Ethan stayed close to Sophia, sensing her unease. "Just be yourself," he whispered as they entered the grand hall. "You're already the most interesting person here." Sophia smiled, though her nerves didn't fade. As they moved through the crowd, she couldn't help but notice the sidelong glances and whispered comments. Christopher Vale, ever the opportunist, was among the guests, and his smug expression only heightened Sophia's discomfort. During dinner, a prominent socialite seated nearby leaned toward Ethan, her eyes flicking to Sophia. "So, Ethan, how did you two meet? She doesn't seem like your usual type." Sophia stiffened, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment, but Ethan remained calm. "She's not," he replied with a small smile. "She's better." The conversation moved on, but the comment lingered in Sophia's mind. As much as she appreciated Ethan's support, she couldn't ignore the feeling of being an outsider. After the gala, Ethan drove Sophia home. The ride was quiet, tension filling the space between them. When they reached her apartment, Sophia hesitated before speaking. "Ethan, I don't think I can do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan frowned, turning to face her. "Do what?" "This," she gestured vaguely. "Your world, your people. I don't belong there, and tonight only proved that." "You belong with me," Ethan said firmly. "I don't care about the rest." Sophia shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But I do. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm enough, and tonight just reminded me of how far I still have to go. I don't want to feel like I have to earn my place in your life." Ethan reached for her hand, his expression pained. "Sophia, you don't have to prove anything to me." But Sophia pulled away, her voice breaking. "Maybe not to you, but to myself. I think I do." With that, she stepped out of the car, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly powerless. No amount of money or influence could bridge the gap that Sophia felt between them. He threw himself into work, but even the most pressing deals failed to distract him from the ache in his chest. One evening, as he sat in his office, Adam called. "What's going on with you?" Adam asked bluntly. "You've been distracted for weeks." Ethan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It's Sophia. She's convinced we're too different to make this work." Adam was silent for a moment before responding. "Well, are you?" "What kind of question is that?" Ethan snapped, but Adam didn't back down. "It's an honest one. If you're serious about her, you need to show her that this isn't about fitting into your world. It's about creating a world together." Ethan hung up, Adam's words replaying in his mind. He realized he couldn't let Sophia go, not without fighting for her. Meanwhile, Sophia was grappling with her own emotions. She missed Ethan more than she wanted to admit, but her insecurities loomed large. She buried herself in her work at the community center, finding solace in music and the children she taught. One afternoon, as she played a familiar melody on the piano, a student asked, "Miss Sophia, why don't you perform on stage? You're so good." Sophia smiled wistfully. "I used to, a long time ago." "Then why'd you stop?" the child pressed. Sophia paused, the question stirring something deep within her. She realized she had been holding herself back, not just from music, but from life. Perhaps it was time to stop letting fear dictate her choices. A week later, Sophia received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Ethan and 2 tickets to a piano concert at the city's premier music hall. "Sophia, I know how much music means to you, and I want to share something that means just as much to me. Watching you find your place again. No expectations, no pressure, just you and me, surrounded by the thing you love most. Yours, Ethan." Sophia stared at the note, her heart pounding. Against her better judgment, she decided to go. The night of the concert, Ethan waited nervously outside the music hall. When Sophia arrived wearing a simple but elegant dress, his breath caught in his throat. She looked as radiant as ever, though her eyes carried a mix of apprehension and curiosity. The concert was breathtaking, each piece a reminder of the beauty and power of music. As the final notes faded, Ethan turned to Sophia. "What did you think?" Sophia's eyes glistened with tears. "It was beautiful. Thank you for this." Ethan reached for her hand. "I meant what I said, Sophia. I don't care about the world I come from. I care about you, and I'll spend as long as it takes proving that to you." Sophia hesitated, but for the first time she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of them, of a future where she could be enough, not just for Ethan, but for herself. The concert marked a turning point in their relationship. Sophia began to let her walls down, and Ethan made a conscious effort to bridge the gap between their worlds. He spent more time at the community center, getting to know the children Sophia cared so much about. In turn, Sophia accompanied Ethan to a few more social events, slowly growing more comfortable in his world. But not everyone was happy about their growing closeness. Determined to sabotage their relationship, Christopher spread rumors about Sophia's past, painting her as an opportunist. The whispers reached Ethan, who confronted Christopher at a charity event. "You think you can tear her down with your lies?" Ethan said, his voice cold. "You don't know the first thing about her, or me," Christopher sneered. "You're blinded by infatuation. One day, you'll see the truth." Ethan didn't dignify the comment with a response. Instead, he walked away, his resolve stronger than ever. The final blow came when a journalist, tipped off by Christopher, published a piece about Sophia's financial struggles and her mother's illness. Sophia was mortified, but Ethan stood by her, publicly defending her character. "That article only proves one thing," Ethan said in an interview. "Sophia is one of the strongest, most selfless people I've ever met. I'm proud to call her the woman I love." The statement silenced the critics, and for the first time, Sophia felt truly seen and valued. The fallout from the article proved to be a blessing in disguise. Though it initially brought unwanted attention to Sophia, it also garnered sympathy and respect from those who admired her resilience and selflessness. For Sophia, however, the experience forced her to confront her deepest fears of vulnerability, of judgment, and of being seen as less than equal in Ethan's world. Sophia sat in her small apartment, the article spread out on the table before her. The headline blared her struggles for the world to see, but what stood out most were Ethan's words of support. His unwavering defense of her character wasn't just a gesture, it was a declaration of his love and belief in her. For the first time in years, Sophia decided to fight back, not against the critics, but against the voice in her head that told her she wasn't enough. She began to explore ways to reclaim her passion for music. Her mother, now on the mend, encouraged her to take a leap of faith. "You've spent so long taking care of me," her mother said one evening, her voice warm but firm. "It's time you took care of yourself." Sophia reached out to a former mentor, a well-respected pianist who had once offered her a chance to tour internationally. Though years had passed since they last spoke, the mentor welcomed her back with open arms. "You've been through so much," the mentor said after their first meeting, "but your talent hasn't faded. If anything, your story will make your music even more powerful." Sophia began practicing at the community center after hours, rediscovering her love for the piano. Ethan often joined her, sitting quietly as she played, his presence a comforting reminder that she wasn't alone. One evening, after finishing a particularly emotional piece, Sophia turned to Ethan. "Do you really believe I can do this?" Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I don't just believe it, Sophia, I know it." While Sophia worked to rebuild her confidence, Ethan faced challenges of his own. The business world was relentless, and his relationship with Sophia had become a point of contention among some of his colleagues and investors. "You're risking your reputation," one of his board members warned during a meeting. "People are talking, Ethan. They don't understand why someone like you is distracted." Ethan's response was firm. "If my personal life is a distraction to anyone, they're welcome to leave. My decisions are my own, and I won't apologize for them." Despite his confidence, Ethan felt the weight of the scrutiny. He had built his empire on careful decisions and calculated risks, but his relationship with Sophia was different. It wasn't just a risk, it was a leap of faith. As Ethan and Sophia grew closer, they began to envision a shared future. They decided to combine their passions by launching a music foundation for underprivileged children, using Ethan's resources and Sophia's expertise. The project became a labor of love, bringing them even closer. They spent late nights brainstorming ideas, visiting schools, and meeting with potential sponsors. The foundation was a way for Sophia to give back while also pursuing her dreams. And for Ethan, it was a chance to build something meaningful outside the corporate world. Christopher Vale, still bitter about his failed attempts to sabotage their relationship, wasn't ready to give up. He spread a rumor that the foundation was a vanity project for Ethan, designed to repair his reputation after the controversy surrounding Sophia. The rumor gained traction, threatening to overshadow the foundation's launch event. Ethan and Sophia decided to address the situation head-on. At the launch, held in a modest but elegant venue, Ethan took the stage to deliver a speech. "This foundation isn't about me," he began, his voice steady. "It's about the children who will benefit from it. And it's about Sophia, whose courage and passion inspired this project. If anyone questions our intentions, I invite you to see the impact we're making firsthand." The speech was met with applause, but the true highlight of the evening came when Sophia performed. Her music silenced even the harshest critics, her talent and authenticity shining through every note. The success of the launch marked a turning point for Ethan and Sophia. The foundation received an outpouring of support, and the rumors faded into the background. More importantly, Sophia began to see herself not as an outsider in Ethan's world, but as an equal partner. One evening, as they sat together in Ethan's penthouse looking out over the city, Sophia turned to him. "You know, I never thought I'd find myself here, not just in your home, but in your life." Ethan took her hand, his expression soft. "And I can't imagine my life without you." Just as things seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected setback threatened to derail their progress. Sophia's mother suffered a health scare, forcing Sophia to put everything on hold to care for her. The stress and exhaustion began to take a toll, and for a brief moment, Sophia considered stepping back from the foundation altogether. "I can't do this, Ethan," she said one night, her voice heavy with fatigue. "I can't be everything to everyone." Ethan pulled her into a gentle embrace. "You don't have to be. Let me help you. We're in this together, remember?" Sophia nodded, her resolve slowly returning. With Ethan's support, she found a way to balance her responsibilities, leaning on the foundation's team and her mentor for help. As Sophia's mother recovered, Sophia returned to the foundation with a renewed sense of purpose. She and Ethan continued to work tirelessly, their bond growing stronger with every challenge they faced together. One evening, as they walked through the community center, Sophia stopped and turned to Ethan. "You know, I spent so long believing I wasn't enough, but now, for the first time, I feel like I am." Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "You've always been enough, Sophia. You just needed to see it." The launch of the foundation had set the stage for something extraordinary. Sophia and Ethan's lives intertwined not just in love, but in purpose. Yet, the lingering shadows of their past struggles and the pressure of building something meaningful kept them on edge. As the foundation gained traction, it was time for its first major milestone, a public benefit concert that would showcase Sophia's talents while raising funds for underprivileged children. The concert was set to take place in the city's most prestigious music hall, an ambitious step for the foundation. Sophia would headline the event, performing alongside a youth orchestra comprised of students from the foundation's programs. It was a chance for Sophia to reclaim her place in the world of music and to demonstrate the transformative power of their shared vision. In the weeks leading up to the concert, Sophia poured herself into preparations. She worked tirelessly with the students, ensuring they were ready to shine. Ethan, meanwhile, handled the logistics, rallying sponsors and securing media coverage. The stakes were high, and the pressure was palpable. As the date approached, Sophia began to feel the weight of expectations. What if she failed? What if the concert didn't live up to the hype? The insecurities she thought she had conquered started to creep back in. One evening, as she practiced alone in the music hall, Ethan found her sitting at the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. "You've been here for hours," he said softly. "You need to rest." "I can't," Sophia replied, her voice trembling. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I let everyone down?" Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "Sophia, look at me. You've already done something incredible. These kids believe in themselves because of you, and I believe in you. Whatever happens, you've already succeeded." Sophia nodded, his words steadying her nerves. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," he said with a smile. The night of the concert arrived and the music hall buzzed with excitement. The audience was a mix of prominent figures, community supporters, and families of the young musicians performing. The spotlight was on Sophia, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Backstage, Sophia stood with the students, offering last-minute encouragement. As the lights dimmed and the first notes of the orchestra filled the hall, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The performance was nothing short of magical. Sophia's playing was flawless, her passion radiating through every note. The youth orchestra, inspired by her leadership, played with a confidence that belied their age. Together, they created something extraordinary, a symphony of resilience, hope, and unity. Midway through the concert, an unexpected guest arrived, Christopher Vale. He had come not to sabotage, but out of curiosity, drawn by the buzz surrounding the event. As he watched Sophia and the students perform, something shifted within him. For the first time, he saw beyond his prejudices and insecurities. He saw the power of what Sophia and Ethan had created. After the concert, Christopher approached Sophia. "I owe you an apology," he said, his tone uncharacteristically sincere. "I misjudged you. Tonight, you proved me wrong." Sophia, though surprised, accepted his apology with grace. "Thank you, Christopher. That means a lot." As the evening drew to a close, Ethan took the stage to address the audience. "Tonight isn't just about music," he began. "It's about what happens when we believe in each other, when we lift each other up. Sophia and these incredible students have shown us that greatness isn't about where you come from. It's about where you're willing to go." He turned to Sophia, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Sophia, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'll never stop believing in you." The audience erupted into applause as Sophia's cheeks flushed with emotion. Tears glistened in her eyes as she joined Ethan on stage, their connection undeniable. The concert was a resounding success, raising enough funds to expand the foundation's programs. More importantly, it solidified Sophia's confidence in herself and her relationship with Ethan. They had faced judgment, doubts, and challenges, but they had emerged stronger, together. As they walked hand in hand out of the music hall that night, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Hope for her future, for their future, and for the countless lives they would continue to touch through their work. The weeks following the benefit concert marked a new chapter for Ethan and Sophia. Their foundation received widespread recognition, with sponsors and donors pouring in support for its mission. More importantly, their relationship had reached a point of stability and mutual understanding that neither had ever experienced before. Sophia had fully embraced her role in the foundation. She spent her days mentoring students, organizing music workshops, and reconnecting with her passion for performance. Ethan, in turn, balanced his corporate responsibilities with his commitment to their shared vision, using his resources and influence to expand the foundation's reach. One afternoon, as they walked through a newly renovated wing of the community center, Sophia turned to Ethan. "Do you ever feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be?" Ethan smiled, his gaze soft. "Every single day." Ethan's parents, who had initially expressed reservations about Sophia, began to see her in a new light. After attending the concert and witnessing the impact of the foundation, they approached Sophia during a family dinner. "We were wrong about you," Ethan's mother admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "You've shown us what it means to truly care for others. We're proud to have you as part of our family." Sophia, moved by their sincerity, smiled. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The reconciliation strengthened not only Sophia's bond with Ethan's family, but also Ethan's resolve to continue building a life with her. Sophia's mother, too, had found a renewed sense of purpose. Her health improved steadily, and she often joined Sophia at the foundation, volunteering to help with events and administrative tasks. Watching her daughter flourish filled her with pride. "I always knew you were meant for great things," her mother said one evening, "and now the world knows it too." One quiet evening, as they sat on the rooftop of Ethan's penthouse overlooking the glittering city lights, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Sophia," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me the beauty of simplicity, the power of resilience, and the importance of believing in something greater than myself. I want to spend the rest of my life building this life with you, our life. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she nodded. "Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times, yes." Their story wasn't just a tale of love, it was a testament to the power of resilience, belief, and unity. Together, Ethan and Sophia had not only bridged the gap between their worlds but had created a new one filled with hope, purpose, and the promise of a brighter future for those they touched. As they stood together under the stars, their journey far from over, one thing was certain: they were exactly where they were meant to be.